Hey everyone, Macqo here, and first of all, I would like to thank everyone who watched the video regarding my thoughts on Killing Floor 3. At the time of writing the script, the video has hit over 3,000 views. That is insane. Again, thank you all for watching that and for feedback, both positive and negative. And now I would like to give you some insight into why I am making this video. You see, when I was a kid, I liked a couple of things. Obviously, I liked games, and because I didn't have constant internet access on my personal computer until I turned like 12, which honestly I think that it turned out for the better this way, but that meant I could only play games that were single player, or maybe local split-screen co-op games on my computer. And I'd say that because of that, I've played through a variety of good and bad single player games. But there were two other things that I liked, and luckily I managed to find both in gaming too. First was my love for history. I really liked reading books about different historical periods and what was going on at that time, which influenced me into playing some games that were at least based in a real historical setting, like Rome Total War. And second was my love for comic books. I've read a lot of Donald Duck comics when I was young, and we had a bunch of old Superman, like the Death of Superman ones, and a bunch of other superhero comics at our house. And because I read a lot of them, I really liked comic books in general. And that is the category in which this game is situated. XIII is a game created by Ubisoft Paris in 2003 and is an adaptation of the first 5 volumes of a Belgian graphic novel series that started in 1984. The comic book series were clearly inspired by the Bourne Identity novel by Robert Ludlum. And then, later on, the Bourne Identity film feels inspired by both the novel by Mr. Ludlum, but also kind of by the 13 graphic novels, but that is not the point of this video. You see, when I was young and I played through this game, I thought that for some reason this game was amazing. And when I saw it on a promo for approximately like €1.50 on Good Old Games, I decided to play through it now that I've more experience with other titles and make a video on it. So, how was it? Well, before we get to the nitty-gritty, please consider leaving a like on a video if you liked it, and a sub for more game reviews and opinion videos. Now, I am giving you a spoiler warning because I will have to talk about the plot of this game a fair bit. I'm not going to spoil the entirety of the game, but there might be things that I will need to mention. So, off to the topic of the video we go. As I said, XIII is an adaptation of Belgian graphic novels created originally by Jean Van Ham and William Vance, which itself is heavily inspired by the Bourne Identity novel. But what exactly does it mean? Well, it means that the story of the game is that of an action spy book or movie. And the game does give out that action spy comic vibe. And honestly, I think that is mostly thanks to the art direction of this game. The game itself is not the prettiest. In fact, a lot of the models seem very simple and in some cases even kind of undercooked. But the overall art direction with the focus on cel shading, visible onomatopoeias and giving out this comic book vibe of the game really make me give it some leeway in that department. But how does the game even start? What's the point? Well, the game starts off by showing an assassination of a US president, which we can clearly see references one for one the assassination of JFK. Then, there's some additional exposition showing that the assassination is a part of a bigger plan. The whole sequence is nicely tied together by transitioning between a view of comic book panels and then bringing forth specific comic panels and animating them. Then, at the end of this sequence, we can see that the main character being woken up by what we can assume is a lifeguard on a beach. We can't remember anything except for a flashback of being shot at on a boat, and after we come back from the flashback we quickly collapse on the ground. Then we wake up in a small house where we are told that the only thing on us was a key to the bank safe. Then some goons drive up to that house and immediately shoot at the lifeguard, killing her, and then try to enter the house and get rid of us. And that is when the real game starts. After that, the game focuses on 2 major plot points that are directly intertwined. Personal plot, meaning main character's amnesia and the slow recovery of his past and what got him into this place, as well as the plot which we discover very early in the game, and that is a secret organization trying to overthrow the US government to rule by itself, with 20 members, each named after Roman numerals. That is also why the game is named 13. The main character is directly named by two names at the start, number 13 and Steve Rowland. And now that we have a very brief overview of the plot, before I continue with the game's story and some things I like about it and what I don't like about it, let's talk about the mechanics and the vibes. I remembered 13 to be a game that had both a lot of action-packed scenes and a lot of stealthy gameplay. But now that I play it, I'm starting to have second thoughts about it. I think what was really selling the stealth gameplay idea to me was the way stealth was originally presented here. If 13 was moving slowly, or stood still, the player could see little tap 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 onomatopoeias showing on a screen in a place where an enemy would be located behind the wall. Now, in all honesty, the stealth system in this game can be omitted for the most part outside of two missions, where you cannot kill certain enemies, but you are allowed to only knock them out. Otherwise, the mission would fail. And why do I say that the system can be omitted for the most part? Well, in the majority of the missions where being somewhat stealthy plays a role, you are given a crossbow and sometimes knives, and both of these weapons are one-shot kills to the head. On top of that, the AI really leaves a lot to be desired. I've encountered a couple of situations where an enemy would look directly at me, but because I was too far away for him to aggro, which wasn't very far in the first place by the way, he just wouldn't do anything. And sometimes the enemy would detect you sneaking directly behind him and get instantly alerted. It's kind of all over the place, and I think that somewhere 2 hours in, I kind of stopped caring too much about the stealthing, hiding bodies and patiently waiting for enemies to come around the corner, and instead I would just sneak up, shoot them with a crossbow, silenced pistol, or just run up to them with an item you can pick up to knock the enemy out and one-hit KO them before they could raise the alarm. Most of the time I didn't even need to hide the bodies, and the one time I was found out because the body was found, there wasn't any consequences really, just some guards showed up that I had to kill. But I need to praise the game where it's due. And whenever you headshot an enemy with a sniper rifle, a crossbow or a knife, or you make an enemy fall off a ledge, you are giving a comic book inset that pops up at the top, and I never get bored of them. There are also the same type of insets whenever there are things happening that have some importance in the mission, as well as to point out that you might have raised the alarm. Oh yeah, and there's also a possibility of taking someone hostage, and that way the enemies will not shoot you as long as the hostage is facing them, which is cool. But it was only utilized like twice in a meaningful way in the campaign. So if the stealth gameplay isn't anything spectacular, is the gunplay at least good? Well, it's manageable. I think that if the gunfights had some flow to them, as if there was some actual intent put behind how the developers wanted the game look for combat to feel, then I wouldn't really harp on the gunplay. But there isn't really any flow to how the combat should work. Now, enemies have a harder time tracking you if you strafe while shooting, except for the bosses, who are very accurate if you are left in the open, unlike the normal enemies. The guns themselves seem a little bit all over the place. There's 16 weapons in total, plus some environmental weapons that are used for stealth killing in one hit. But yeah, while the sound of the 9mm pistol sounds like a reload of a plastic gun, it does bring me nostalgia. And funnily enough, the most accurate weapons in this game are the semi-automatic or single-shot weapons. Any weapon that has default full auto mode and burst mode just spreads their bullets a lot, which is fine for a run and gun section, but if I needed to tap someone's head from the distance, I found myself more often than not switching to pistols, revolvers, sniper rifles or crossbows. And also a funny little thing. Ammunition for the AR-15 variant in this game, most likely modeled after M16 M203, has its ammo labeled AR ammo. But you might notice that when you pick up an AK or a Kalashnikov, as the game indicates, despite resembling the general look of an AK-47 or an AKM, when you pick up ammo for this gun, it says 5.56 ammo, despite the fact that the typical AK caliber would be 7.62 by 39. And here I want to touch onto something that might be important. Depending on the type of game, people are willing to forgive the game's shortcomings, point it out but notice it and forgive it. But that happens only if the game tries to be something and it does the mechanics that it wants to focus on well. In the case of 13, both the stealth and gun aspects are just mid. Like, they are not absolutely terrible, but you can ignore one aspect and the other one is not necessarily great. So what exactly made 13 a game that I vividly remembered from my childhood, and what made me want to play it again? Well, I think it was mostly just the feeling of the game, kind of like with the Killing Floor games. It had a vibe. Well, obviously if you wanted to go on a world tour playing as a spy that tries to stop a plot that can change how the world works currently, you would specifically play the 007 games, like for instance GoldenEye. If you really wanted good stealth, well, you would most likely play the Splinter Cell game that was released in 2002. And if you wanted great gunplay, you could just play Counter-Strike Online. But you know what? For some magic reason, when I look at this game, at the combination of the plot, how the stealth clunkily but works, how the gameplay feels, and how the gunplay feels, and how the game looks, supported with how all over the place the sound design and voice acting is, something about this combination of jankiness strikes home and makes me actually enjoy this game more. Let's not get things twisted. I enjoyed the game for the actual price point it was at, but if I were to pay a full price for that title, I would probably not do it. However, for the price point I bought it, I had a grand time. And since I mentioned the voice acting and sound design, the game's main character, a man of few words, 13, is voiced by Mr. David Duchovny. Yes, the same David Duchovny who played Fox Mulder in The X-Files and Hank Moody in Californication. I'd say he's a good actor all in all, and I don't know what happened, if that was just the fault of the sound director not instructing Mr. Duchovny well enough, or if the voice actor just didn't care enough, or if it was a combination of both. But whenever a 13 would speak up, it sounded like he was about to fall asleep.
The timer. I've fallen into my own trap.
On the other hand, you had characters like General Carrington, also voiced by a big actor, namely Adam West. But with General Carrington, I don't really have much to say except it was played well. He gave away the feel of an army general that cares about his men. Also, most of the unnamed characters and their dialogues were voiced pretty well.
Hey, Fly! I'm out on leave tonight, so don't make me look bad while I'm out. Just because you won yesterday's exercise doesn't make you a hero around here.
Steve Rowland, the man whose identity I took.
Mr. Rowland? It's been such a long time.
Now that I'm cured, Doctor, may I reintegrate my unit?
Pinhead, Macqo is a pinhead.
Yes, sir, Colonel!
And the music for the most part was giving that spy movie vibe, so I give it a pass. And the level design in the game varies from a really short, nice level to some really weird ones that I didn't really like. Namely the prison level. I will not say that it was not climatic. In fact, I would say that for the most part it did give vibe of a prison right next to a mental institution. But just the way the level was built and the way my character bugged out, there kind of threw me off.
Down the stairs.
Dr. Michael to room 11. Dr. Michael to room 11.
Down the stairs.
Dr. Michael to room 11.
Outside of that, we had levels that varied a lot, and I think that was for the better. We had a bank level, an FBI level, a New York rooftop level, a bunch of snow levels varying from a military snow base to you are in a wood cabin in the snow level, set prison with a mental asylum, a desert level, jungle, underwater submarine, a docks level, as well as a level where you visit an estate of people who look eerily similar to the Ku Klux Klan. And you finish off with going into a military base to stop the missile silo from launching. Unfortunately, these levels are fairly simple and pretty empty. Outside of a couple of Doom-style secrets where you sometimes may find a full health pack and a full Kevlar armor and helmet, and outside of places where you are meant to go, it feels pretty empty. Like the devs made a map first, thought it was cool, and then did the actual mission and the objectives, but then they forgot how big the map actually was and left a lot of the map just empty. And now, before I go to my conclusions, let's talk more about the plot. The game makes you slowly discover your past as you uncover the big conspiracy in it all. Turns out the real 13, the man who assassinated the president, is dead, and you are just a lookalike whose name is... And now that you've uncovered this conspiracy led by a group of people called the Council of 20, with each member hiding as an important figure in politics, military or other places, and with a tattooed Roman numeral on their body, you try to stop it along with General Carrington. This whole ordeal leads to a grand tour around the US landscapes, as you can tell from when I listed the places just a moment ago. Overall, the plot itself is fine. It's nothing to really gush about, but considering how this is an adaptation and not a one-to-one of the graphic novel, I'd say it is serviceable with some moments even leaning on the good side. I liked the way Fly had these triggered retrospective moments that gave some context as you went along to what is actually going on. And now for my biggest problem with this game. And I actually mean it. It ends on a cliffhanger, and there is no sequel. Now, you would think that it's a good thing because so far this game seems mid, but well, I kind of got into the over-the-top spy story vibe by the end and I really wanted to find out who was the infamous number one. But, well, the game ends on a cliffhanger, and because it did not sell very well originally, the only quote-unquote sequel we got was a mobile game. Then in 2020 there was an attempt at remastering the game, which I assumed happened because after the years this game has started gathering a following, but the remaster was so bad that they had to unlist it, change the studio that was responsible for it, and re-release the re-release of the game as a free upgrade to the game. And that did not sell well, so I can only assume that we will never get to see the rest of the plot of the game, which does make me upset. But all in all, I would say that for the price I paid for the game, it was fun, but only for the price I paid. I would not pay the full $12 that it goes for on Steam, but if you ever notice this game go on a discount below $10, I would buy it and give it a shot. I played through the whole game on what the game considers hard, and I finished it in between 5 to 7 hours. Mostly because I died on a couple of boss fights and the checkpoint system in this game is kind of meh, and sometimes it can force you to replay through a fairly long section of the game. But yeah, if you ever see this game on a discount and you feel like some spy movie action in a comic book style game, I would give this game a try. Even though it had its flaws, because this game was short-ish, I still managed to have fun in it and I didn't feel bored yet, and I think that is a very important thing in this type of games. They are short, they are not prolonged, they usually take a couple hours to finish and then you're done. Your whole experience is kind of short, yeah, but at least it wasn't long enough for you to start getting bored. And that's going to be the end of this video. If you liked it, please consider leaving a like and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.